There's a lot of data inside your application, and there's a big opportunity outside of your application. Recently, I met with 3 experts to decide what you should do about this topic. And that's next on bizintelligence.tv.
Hi, I'm John Myers. I'm the founding principal of the Blue Buffalo Group, a telecommunications analysis firm specializing in revenue assurance and business process management for the telecommunications industry.
I'm Sean Rogers, Vice President of Research for Enterprise Management Associates. We're an advisory firm that helps both vendors and users with business intelligence and data warehousing solutions.
I'm Donald Farmer, and I work in the Microsoft SQL Server Business Intelligence Management team. And nobody quite knows what I do in that team, but I do a hell of a lot of it.
When CIOs have to pick where to go for business intelligence, they often wonder, should they buy business intelligence from their application vendor, or should they think across multiple applications? So John, I know in the telecommunications space, that's a very common subject, I'd say, because you're very application-centric. You know, how do you think about business intelligence and applications? Think across the applications or inside the applications?
Well, in terms of telecommunications, a lot of times they have started moving towards business intelligence inside of their operational systems. This comes from reputations associated with EDW reputations, etc. But they've gone to the point where they've got so much data and they want to take a look at it in such a time frame, they figure, let's do it inside of our applications. But in terms of that, they also are finding that there's a lot of data that's not available to them to complete their analysis because they are siloed, whether it be network, billing, cost, those types of areas. And what they're doing is they're starting to pull in other information, particularly in telecommunications. Geolocation and types of information is important, whether it be for contracts with for providers, or whether it be trying to put together location-based services for business to consumer types of applications. So you're seeing a mix of it where they're being driven down a pipe of going towards business intelligence associated with the operational systems, but then they're forced to say we need to get additional information that might be provided to them in that wider EDW environment.
And so what we're talking about here is not so much the information that's in one application, but the combination of multiple data points to get to an insight.
Correct. They're finding that at a base level they can get what they need, but that next step they need to go to, they need to have more information. And that's the limitation of going with BI in an operational system versus a wider type of non-siloed environment.
And this is not simply true in the telecommunication industry. I know, Sean, you work across multiple industries as well. Is there other examples where you see this working across application, working for CIOs?
Well, yeah. You know, I think one of the areas that I've seen some interesting applications that reach outside of themselves for data is a great story from the insurance industry. And the insurance industry is taking a look at, obviously they're very concerned with risk and risk management, and they do a great job with it, but they're looking for new data points that they can bring in. And one of the areas that they're touching on is web data and public data, specifically from the social sphere. So they're looking at people's social graph, and they're actually able to make some computations based on who their circle of friends are and the places that they hang out online as to how that scores for their risk. So it's an interesting source of data, but it's certainly outside the application and adds a lot of value to their business.
Now that's a great example, because as you think about selling insurance to an individual, there's a large amount of data that's not going to be captured about that individual in what you would say more traditional databases, and so you get a better picture. That's a great example for many organizations to think about inside their own organizations. Donald, do you have examples of organizations that are doing this today, thinking about BI in the apps?
Yes, there's actually a very interesting example of somebody who's taking BI not just from outside their application, but actually, if you like, introspecting into their own application. And it relates to what Sean was saying about insurance. It's a healthcare company, Care Group.
Yep.
Now, what Care Group are doing that is fascinating is they're actually building BI applications over their operational metadata. So, for example, audit logs, access logs, that sort of thing, the change records and so on. And by actually auditing that and building models over that, they're able to build reports and dashboards about who is accessing healthcare data, who's using it, who's making changes to it, who's changing the metadata of the application. So they're actually using BI not just on the data within the application, but on the operational operational metadata about the application in order to build a compliance and risk management system for healthcare, which I think is pretty fascinating.
So we've got really different examples here. One of a customer facing in telco and in insurance where you're trying to get a complete picture. And then here in the IT model where you're actually using BI to audit your applications. I think we've talked a lot about how much information is available inside and outside the applications. Is there an assessment where you think there's a number where 70% of the data that you actually need to make decisions is outside of your applications? Have you come across any stats on that?
I don't have specific stats on it, but I think one of the ones that you hear the most often is that 80% of the business information is outside of the structured world, right? And that only 20% of it is in structure or in databases, and we're seeing that through our research and through our interaction with our users that they're starting to embrace that other 80%, and so that's one of the biggest numbers that I've seen, and they're starting to try to figure out ways to bring in semi-structured, unstructured data, and web-based data and social, as I mentioned before, are all finding their way into the BI ecosystem right now, and it adds a lot of value to their systems.
Great. Well, thank you very much again for your time, and until next time, I'm Bruno Ziza.